Hi, I'm Stewart Spinks and welcome to episode 352 of my podcast, Beekeeping Short and Sweet. The UK is set for its first heatwave of the year, and with it comes the summer nectar flow with our borage crop looking likely to be a couple of weeks early. The important thing to remember is to take care in the sun and keep well hydrated. Beekeeping Short and Sweet, a beekeeping podcast for the inquisitive beekeeper with a short attention span. A beekeeper, in fact, just like me. This week's podcast is brought to you, in part, by Hive Multi-Guard. So,
when you need a little peace of mind that your bees are safe from dangers of all kind, pesticides, hornets, wasps and mice are no match for Hive 5. The Hive 5 Multi-Guard is the best one in town. Keeps your bees safe all year round. The ultimate solution has been found. It's Hive 5.
The Hive 5 Multi-Guard fits nearly all beehives and makes beekeeping much easier. Hive 5.
you know, I'm still dancing around in my seat to that jingle. Hi everyone, podcast time once more, and with it some incredibly hot weather for the time of year. Temperatures look set to climb into the low 30s Celsius and signals the first heat wave of the year. It's an early start to the heat wave season and is more problematic for beekeepers in bee suits than for our honeybees, I think. It's dry too. There may be a little light rain in the forecast, but generally the weather is set fair and dry, leading everyone to talk about drought conditions and the likes of a hosepipe ban just around the corner. This weekend sees midsummer. That's the 21st of June. Actually, it's today. I'm recording this on the 21st of June, the longest day for us here in the Northern Hemisphere, and with it the uppermost point of the season, and dare I say it, the long drift back to shorter days and the end of another season. So much to do before we get to that point in the year. In amongst all of that, we have our main summer nectar flow. Plants everywhere are giving up copious amounts of nectar and pollen, tempting insects of all kinds to visit and get a reward for stopping by. At our fishing lakes apiaries, the blackberries or brambles, I'm never quite sure which way to go with naming them. I guess it's interchangeable. Everyone understands both names, I think, so I don't think I'm going to get into trouble. Is it that brambles are the wild variety and blackberry maybe for the cultivated type? Anyway, at the fishing lakes, these are in full bloom now, and the bees here are making the most of every possible opportunity to forage. It can easily be seen if your bees are foraging black bramble berries. That's a new variety that I've just invented. Just look into your brood box and check what pollen colours are coming in. There will be many different types, of course, but look for an overwhelming kind of grey-green coloured pollen, and that's the triple B pollen. I'm often asked around this time of the year about how to identify a nectar flow, and I'm often guilty of simply stating that there's a nectar flow on. Yet for those new beekeepers, it can be something of a mystery, like so many things in beekeeping, until you've experienced it. The easiest way to spot a nectar flow is during an inspection. We give them a little smoke, remove the roof and supers, some heavier than others. Next, the queen excluder comes off and we're into the brood box for our inspection. And as we go through that box, we notice that lots of cells we thought the queen might have laid eggs in are actually full of nectar. That's a really good sign of a nectar flow. It quickly gets moved out of those cells and up into the supers, providing there's space, of course. Remember, supers need to go on now, not a week after the start of seeing that there's a nectar flow. You may well be a little too late by that time. Just don't panic. Check out your local forage add a super if your bees are likely to need the space before your next inspection. Another great way to spot a nectar flow is when you tilt a frame to look into the cells in that brood nest area to check up on the state of the larvae. Lots and lots of pollen clumps will fall out of the cells. The bees have surely been on a plant that is offering up lots of pollen, and they're bringing it back, dumping it off and getting straight back out again. And of course it's just loose in some cells, so it just falls straight out. If you find yourself needing to shake bees off a frame to check something, another indicator of a nectar flow is the high volume of nectar that comes out of those cells when you shake the frame. Sometimes simply just tilting the frame will cause nectar to run out of those cells. So again, that's something to take note of and to be cautious with when you are inspecting. I can remember as a seasonal bee inspector having to shake bees off frames in order to check for pests and disease. And at this time of the year, all you see when you shake the frame is a mass of workers dropping off the frame and immediately being covered with a shower of nectar. Now that's a nectar flow. So you see, there are some simple signs to alert you to the fact that your bees are doing their thing. It's also easy to simply look around you, both in the apiary and just generally as you travel around or go out on walks. Flowering plants are everywhere if only you look for them. Just this last week I delivered a couple of nucleus colonies to a local business in Norwich for a rooftop apiary, well, more accurately, a roof balcony apiary. I immediately spotted that they were surrounded by our native lime trees, which are currently flowering, an excellent source of both nectar and pollen. It's too late for a crop of honey from these trees this year for them, but I have no doubt that next year they'll have a lot of fun managing their bees and watching their first honey crop coming in. I've actually been helping out another beekeeper who purchased a nuke from me for an 8-frame flow hive that she was given as a present at Christmas. Beekeepers are a funny bunch, aren't they? The mention of a flow hive normally gets quite a sniffy reaction, but having never used one, I think most are just assuming the worst and dismiss it as not appropriate for the UK. Now, I also know there are some real fans of this hive type here in the UK, and personally, having never used one, I don't really have an opinion on it. All I would say is if it's your hobby and your equipment, then enjoy all the ups and downs, the highs and lows, and just ignore all of those naysayers. Well, the beekeeper in question asked for my advice as they were close to oilseed rape crops when we installed her bees. I suggested a compromise solution to prevent honey granulation in the flow hive, and so a standard super was purchased and added, which the bees have been filling, and then the flow box thing was added on top. Fantastically, there's no honey in it. The honey is filling up quickly in the frames, and the beekeeper couldn't be more happy. The plan is to use the tap system to drain off some honey over the next few weeks. At the end of the season, the flow box will be removed completely, and the traditional super will be left with the bees as stores for overwintering. The beekeeper in question, as I say, couldn't be happier. The bees are calm and productive. Yes, they're headed up with a Northumberland honey queen, and I have every confidence that they will go on to produce many jars of honey for this beekeeper this season, which is exactly what was wanted. Some beekeepers simply want a few jars of honey for themselves and family, an opportunity to look after a colony of bees, and time to sit back and watch them work in the fields and hedgerows that can be seen from the back garden. It's a pretty idyllic scene, really, isn't it? Right, back to reality. For me, it's borage time. The clock is ticking, and the workload, as of this weekend, has dramatically ramped up as we start to move to our sites for the borage pollination. It's not just simply a case of load the colonies onto the back of the trailer and ship them down. I've already been organising pallets for hives to be set on, not just for me but for the other beekeepers helping out with the pollination this year. Each colony will need a queen excluder and supers, and depending on the size of the colony, this could be 2, 3, 4 or even more supers. The farmer actually telephoned me yesterday. He's called several times recently. It's as important a crop for him as it is for me, and he wanted to let me know that he thinks the plants are a good couple of weeks ahead of last year. So he was getting a little bit nervous and just checking that I'm ready to take the bees down. The colonies will have at least one super added for the trip on the trailer. I try to keep them as light as possible, protecting my back of course, but give them enough room so that they don't overheat. I'll also use travel screens on top of some of the colonies if I think they are so large that they need that extra ventilation. Luckily, it's not a very long trip and it will be an overnight move anyway, so the coolest part of the 24-hour period. Because of this, I've taken a batch of supers down already and stored them on site so that we can use them once we get the bees in place. For me, it's easier to do it like this rather than struggle with heavier hives to lift. I do have to remember not to push my back too hard, a difficult thing when it currently feels fine, but it's always that last lift that does the damage, and normally it's that point at which I'm picking up a sock after a long day or night. Of course, there's the additional time constraint that I've got my trip to see my youngest daughter looming. I'll probably have to leave packing my things until the very last minute, once everything is sorted with the bees, and then I'll hopefully be able to relax a little. And this brings me on to another important point about this time of our season, weekly inspections. These will obviously not happen while I'm away, and honestly, it's not a bad thing. With the main reproductive phase of the year pretty much done and the nectar flow about to begin, I feel confident in leaving the bees alone for the time that I'll be away. It's likely to be a full 3 weeks before I get to look at them again, and this, I think, is really good for the bees. The plan is to get them settled in their new migratory homes, have a quick look through for queen cells, of which we probably currently only have 1 or 2. Certainly that was the case at the last inspection, and we're now back up to close to 100 or more colonies, so the risk of swarming for most is past. Once that's done, I'll add supers and away we go. USA bound via Iceland of all places. Yep, Dad's gone to Iceland. Anyway, lots to do before then. One job that I reluctantly had to complete last week was the dismantling of the John Harding queen rearing setup. Maybe you've seen the video. I've simply run out of time and haven't been able to get that middle nuke box populated with enough bees to reliably draw out some quality queen cells. These would have been initiated from the Nico Cup Kit frame that was in the neighbouring nuke and actually had been placed in there to get the queen to lay eggs in, ready to move across earlier last week. The queen in the Cup Kit box performed better than expected and laid eggs in every single cell cup. That's 110 potential queen cells. Isn't that just typical? The failure to get a population in that middle nuke means there simply weren't enough bees, and so, reluctantly, I've had to pause queen rearing until my return from this break. When I get back, I'm going to set up a cloakboard colony and have one last attempt at producing some queen cells this season before it gets too late. I'll use the Nico system once more, but the cloakboard finisher colony is something I have far more experience with, rather than the John Harding setup, so I feel far more confident in not wasting any more time. It does mean, though, I'll be looking at August by the time these queens have mated and are laying. Does anyone out there want an autumn queen? I'm sure I'm going to have a surplus. Finally, remember to take some time out to enjoy your bees. If you are inspecting, Take your time, keep out of the sun as best you can, and keep hydrated. And I'll catch up with you all again next week. Well, that's it for this week. For all of you who haven't yet signed up to my Patreon page, I, together with Steph, have been creating beekeeping content for many years now. And if you're looking for some straightforward, down-to-earth tips and techniques, help and advice, then do take a look at my Patreon page. We have over 1,600 individual beekeeping posts, videos and podcasts filled with useful and timely help and advice. My approach is pragmatic and calm, sometimes entertaining, but always with help and support for beekeepers at the heart of what I do. I keep my videos short and concise wherever possible. No waffle, no flannel, just honest beekeeping advice from years of keeping bees. Take a look and join me for the new 2025 beekeeping season. It'll cost you less than a jar of honey. Head over to Google and search for Patreon and the Norfolk Honey Company.